The Years They Took, Chapter 12. The Way He Changed Around Me. The job at the movie theater started as something simple, just a way to get out of the house, to be somewhere that didn't feel controlled. I didn't expect much from it. Just work, a paycheck, something to fill time. But that's where I started noticing Scott. The same guy Laura and I had laughed about when we first saw him. Dirty blonde hair, a little rough around the edges, the kind of guy who carried himself like he didn't care what anyone thought. At first, he barely talked to me. Most of his attention was on Laura, and it didn't take long before they were together. They made sense in that easy teenage way. Laughing, teasing, always finding each other during shifts. "You're late again," Laura would say, arms crossed, but smiling. "I'm right on time," Scott would shoot back, grinning. "You wish." It was light, normal, the kind of thing I watched more than I was part of. I stayed on the outside of it, friendly, but not really involved. Then something changed. At first it was small. They didn't stand as close. Conversations got shorter. The laughter faded. One night I found Scott outside during break, sitting on the curb with a cigarette burning between his fingers. He wasn't even smoking it, just letting it burn. "You good?" I asked, stepping up beside him. "Yeah," he said quickly, but he didn't look at me. I sat down anyway. After a minute, he let out a breath and shook his head. Laura broke up with me. I didn't say anything right away. He stared ahead, jaw tight. "Out of nowhere," he added. "Everything was fine, and then, just done." He gave a short, bitter laugh. "Guess I wasn't enough." "That's not true," I said quietly. He shrugged. "Feels like it." We sat there in silence for a bit, the kind that says more than words. "You really liked her," I said. "Yeah," he admitted, softer now. "I did." He crushed the cigarette under his shoe and leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "I just didn't think it'd end like that." After that, he started coming around me more. Not all at once, just little things at first. "You closing tonight?" he'd ask. "Yeah." "Same." Then we'd end up talking while sweeping floors or taking trash out. "You're quiet," he said one night, glancing over at me. "Not really," I answered. "Just depends." "On what?" "On who I'm around." He looked at me for a second like that answer meant more than it sounded like. "Yeah," he said. "I get that." The sadness didn't leave him. Not completely, but it shifted. Around me, it softened. He laughed more, even if it came out a little quieter than before. "You're actually kind of funny," he said one night, nudging my shoulder. "Don't sound so surprised," I said. "I'm serious," he laughed. "I didn't expect it." We started spending time together without really planning it. Sitting outside after shifts, talking about random things, music, school, stuff that didn't seem important but somehow was. "You ever feel like you don't really fit anywhere?" he asked one night, staring up at the sky. "Yeah," I said after a pause. He nodded slowly. "Same." There was something different in the way he looked at me now. Not like before. Not like when I was just someone in the background of his relationship with Laura. It was softer. More focused. Like he was actually seeing me. Conversations lasted longer. Silences didn't feel empty. They felt comfortable. One night after closing, we walked out together into the quiet parking lot. "Hey," he said, stopping for a second. I turned back. "I'm glad you talked to me that night." I shrugged. "You looked like you needed someone." He smiled, but it wasn't casual. "Yeah, I did." There was a pause, like he was about to say something else, but didn't. And for the first time in a long time, something in my life didn't feel controlled or forced or taken from me. It just felt real. The Years They Took. Chapter 13. Something that was mine. After that night in the parking lot, things between us shifted again, but this time it wasn't subtle. We started finding each other without even trying. If I was on break, he'd show up. If he was closing, somehow I'd end up nearby. Conversations came easier now, less guarded, like we had both decided, without saying it, that this mattered. "Yo, you're ditching me now?" he called one shift when I walked past him. I've got stuff to do, I said, trying not to smile. Yeah, okay, he laughed, falling into step beside me anyway. You always got stuff to do. We ended up outside a few minutes later, leaning against the wall, passing time like we always did. You ever think about just leaving? He asked suddenly. Leaving what? Everything, he said, shrugging. Starting somewhere else. I hesitated. Yeah. Me too, he said quietly. There were moments like that more often now, small openings, things said without fully explaining them but understood anyway. One night after closing, we stayed longer than usual. The others had already left, and the parking lot was mostly empty. The air felt cooler, quieter, like the world had slowed down just enough for something to happen. You got a ride? He asked. Yeah, eventually. He nodded, then didn't move. Neither did I. There was a pause, not awkward, but heavy, like something was sitting right between us, waiting. I've been thinking, he said finally. That's dangerous, I replied, trying to lighten it. He laughed softly, then shook his head. No, I'm serious. I could tell. He looked down for a second, then back at me. Not quick, not unsure, just steady. I like you, he said. My chest tightened, but not in a bad way, just unexpected. I mean, he continued, rubbing the back of his neck, I know everything with Laura and all that, but this isn't about that. It's different. I didn't say anything right away, not because I didn't know what to say, but because I wasn't used to moments like this being real. You don't have to say anything, he added quickly. I like you too, I said. He stopped. Yeah? He asked, almost like he didn't believe it. Yeah? A small smile broke across his face, the kind that wasn't forced or guarded. Okay, good, he said, letting out a breath. Another pause settled in, softer this time. So what does that mean? I asked. He laughed quietly. I was kind of hoping you'd know. I don't, I admitted. He stepped a little closer, not too much, just enough to change the space between us. Do you want to try? He asked, like actually date? There it was, simple, direct, and somehow heavier than anything else I'd been through because this wasn't fear, this was choice. I thought about it, not long, but long enough to feel it. No pressure, no control, no one forcing anything, just me. Yeah, I said. Yeah? He repeated. Yeah. He smiled again, bigger this time, like something had finally settled for him. All right, he said, cool. It wasn't dramatic, no big moment, just two people standing in a quiet parking lot, deciding something simple. But to me, it felt bigger than that. Because for once, nothing was being taken from me, I was choosing it, and that made it different from everything else. The years they took. Chapter 14. The smell that gave me away. Scott started driving me home after some of our late shifts. It became our thing without ever really being said out loud. The rides were quiet sometimes, other times filled with music or random conversations that didn't have to mean anything. That night felt normal, easy even, the kind of normal I had started to get used to around him. You good? He asked as he pulled up. Yeah, I said, lingering for a second longer than I needed to. He looked over at me. You sure? I nodded. Yeah, I'll see you tomorrow. All right, he said, giving a small smile. Text me when you get inside. Okay. I stepped out of the car, closing the door gently, watching his headlights fade as he drove off. For a moment, I just stood there in the quiet, holding onto that feeling a little longer before turning toward the house. The second I walked in, it was gone. You're late. My father's voice cut through the air from the living room. He was already awake. I just got off work, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. He stood up slowly, his eyes narrowing as he stepped closer. Then he paused. What's that smell? My stomach dropped. I didn't answer. He stepped in closer, grabbing my shirt, pulling me toward him slightly as he leaned in. You've been smoking. It's not, I started. Don't lie to me. His hand moved quickly, patting down my pockets. I tried to step back, but he grabbed my arm, holding me in place. A second later, he pulled out the small, crumpled cigarette butts I hadn't realized were still there. He stared at them for a second. Then everything changed. "Get down." I didn't move fast enough. He forced me down, his grip tight, overwhelming. I couldn't get away, couldn't pull free. Panic hit instantly, my body going rigid as I tried to brace myself without knowing how. "What is wrong with you?" he shouted. I didn't answer. I couldn't. The force of it came fast, disorienting, each impact blurring into the next. My head snapped with it, my vision flickering, the room spinning in pieces I couldn't hold on to. I lost count almost immediately. It wasn't about numbers, it was about how overwhelming it felt, how quickly everything became noise and pressure and confusion. "Stop!" I tried, but it came out weak, barely there. It didn't matter. Everything narrowed down to survival, just getting through it, just waiting for it to end. And then finally it did. He let go like nothing had happened, like I wasn't even there. I stayed where I was for a second, trying to understand where I was, what just happened, my head pounding so hard it felt like it might split open. The room tilted when I tried to stand. "Go to your room," he said, like it was just another instruction. I stumbled toward the bathroom instead. The second I made it to the sink, it hit me. I barely had time to react before I got sick, gripping the edge of the counter as everything came up, my body shaking, my head throbbing with every movement. I rinsed my mouth, staring at my reflection. I didn't recognize myself. My eyes looked distant, unfocused. I didn't stay there long. I couldn't. I made my way to my room, closing the door behind me, the quiet hitting harder than anything else. I lay down on the bed slowly, every movement making the pressure in my head worse. It pulsed, sharp, relentless, like something was building inside it with nowhere to go. I stared at the ceiling, barely blinking, trying not to move, trying not to think, but the thought came anyway. Something is wrong. Not just emotionally, physically. I could feel it. The pounding didn't stop. It only grew louder. And lying there in the dark, completely still, one fear settled in deeper than anything else, that I might not wake up in the morning. Chapter 15. You're not going back there like this. After that night, everything felt off. My head still throbbed the next day, not as sharp, but deep and constant, like something sitting behind my eyes that wouldn't go away. I moved slower at school, quieter than usual, trying not to draw attention, but Scott noticed immediately. "You look like shit," he said, half joking, walking up beside me. "Thanks," I muttered. "I'm serious," he said, studying my face. "What happened?" "Nothing, just tired." He didn't believe me. I could tell by the way he kept looking at me like he was trying to piece something together. All day I avoided it, short answers, changing the subject, acting like everything was normal when it wasn't even close. By the time work came around, I felt drained, but being there still felt safer than going home. After closing, we walked out together like usual, but I didn't stop at the edge of the parking lot this time. "You good?" he asked. I shook my head. "I don't want to go home." He frowned slightly. "Why?" I didn't answer right away. The words sat there, heavy, like saying them out loud would make everything more real than it already was. "Hey," he said, softer now. "What's going on?" I let out a breath, staring at the ground. "If I go home, it's just going to happen again." "What is?" he asked, his voice tightening. I hesitated. Then I said it. He hit me. The words felt strange coming out, flat, like they didn't carry the weight they should have. Scott went completely still. "What do you mean he hit you?" he asked. "My dad," I said. "Last night." There was a pause, a long one. Then his whole expression changed. "Are you serious?" he said, his voice rising slightly. "Like, what do you mean hit you?" I shrugged like it was nothing. "I got caught smoking." "That's not—" He stopped himself, running a hand through his hair. "That's not a reason to—" He cut off again, pacing a step or two before turning back to me. "Did he— Are you okay?" "I'm fine," I said automatically. "You don't look fine," he snapped. I flinched slightly at the tone, not expecting it from him. He noticed immediately, and his expression softened, but the anger didn't go away. "Sorry," he said, quieter now. "I'm not mad at you, I'm just—" He shook his head. "That's messed up." I didn't respond. "What else?" he asked. I looked at him. "What else has he done?" he pressed. I hesitated, then looked away. That was enough of an answer. Scott let out a breath, sharp and frustrated. "So this isn't just one time." I stayed quiet. "Why didn't you tell me?" he asked. I laughed a little, but there was no humor in it. "Tell you what, that my life's messed up?" "Yeah," he said, with that. I shook my head. "It's just how it is." "No," he said firmly. "It's not." There was something different in his voice now. Not just concern, anger. Real anger. "You're not going back there tonight," he said. I looked up at him. "I have to." "No, you don't." "Yes, I do," I said, my voice tightening. "You don't get it." "Then help me get it," he shot back. I didn't have an answer for that. He stepped closer, not aggressive, but serious. "You said if you go back, it's going to happen again, so why would you go back?" "Because I don't have a choice," I said quietly. He stared at me like that answer didn't make sense to him. "There's always a choice," he said. "Not for me," I replied. That hit something in him. He shook his head, frustrated, running his hands over his face. "This is so messed up," he muttered. Then he looked back at me. "You can stay with me tonight." I blinked. "What?" "I'm serious," he said. "Just don't go back there." "I can't just not go home," I said. "It'll make it worse." He paused at that, jaw tightening again. "So you're just supposed to go back and let that happen?" he asked. I didn't answer, because that was exactly what I had been doing. He looked at me for a long second, something shifting in his expression again. Not just anger now, but understanding. "You've been dealing with this alone, haven't you?" he said quietly. I nodded. Another pause. Then he stepped a little closer, his voice steady now. "You're not alone anymore." Something about the way he said it made my chest tighten. Not fear. Something else. Something I wasn't used to. And for the first time standing there in that empty parking lot, I realized this wasn't just someone noticing something was wrong. This was someone who actually cared enough to be angry about it. And that felt just as unfamiliar as it did real. Chapter 16. The night I chose. Myself. I told myself it would be fine. Dad and Denise would be asleep. What would it really hurt one night away? One night where I didn't have to feel that knot in my stomach walking through the front door. That's how I justified it as I sat in Scott's car. He reached over, and our hands met without a word. Simple. Easy. Real. "You pick," he said, nodding toward the radio. "You sure?" I asked. "I always let you pick." He smiled. So Britney Spears filled the car, song after song, and he didn't complain once. Just drove, one hand on the wheel, the other holding mine. For that drive, nothing else existed. No fear, no rules, just us. By the time we got to his house, we were exhausted. We barely spoke. We didn't need to. We went straight to his room and collapsed into bed. No expectations, no pressure, just warmth. He pulled me close, and for once I didn't feel like I had to stay alert. No listening for footsteps, no waiting for something to go wrong. I just let go. We fell asleep like that. Quiet. Safe. The next morning felt different. Lighter. Sunlight came through the window, soft and calm. Scott was already awake. "Morning," he said. "Morning." He leaned over and kissed my forehead. Something so small, but it hit deeper than anything else. "Come on," he said. "I'll take you to school." Nothing could have ruined my day. I felt like I had finally found something I didn't even know I was allowed to have. I realized all I ever wanted was simple. To be seen, to be cared about, to feel like I mattered. And he gave me that. Everything felt perfect. Until work. The moment I walked in, I knew something was off. My manager was waiting. "Hey, we need to talk," he said. My stomach dropped. "Your mom?" "My dad's wife," I corrected quickly. He nodded. "She called. Said you've been missing for 3 days. Demanded I fire you." I went pale. 3 days? I had been gone one night. "She lied," I said. "I was gone one night." He studied me, then gave a small smile. "You're a good worker. I'm not firing you because someone at home is mad." Relief hit, but it didn't last, because even here she had tried to take something from me. During break, Scott and I sat in the car. "I'm done," I said, and this time I meant it. My voice cracked as everything came out. "I'm not going back there." He didn't question it. "Okay," he said. That was it, no hesitation. "Let's go talk to my sister." The drive felt heavier, not fear, decision. I knew what this meant. I wasn't going back. His sister, Lisa, opened the door. There was something steady about her. "Can he stay here?" Scott asked. She looked at me. "What's going on?" So I told her. Enough for her to understand. She didn't interrupt. "You can stay," she said, just like that. Then she said something that changed everything. "You're 17. You can legally leave." I stared at her. "What?" "You don't have to go back." For the first time, it felt real. Then she picked up the phone. "I'll handle this." She called Denise. I couldn't hear everything, but I heard enough. Yelling, loud, angry, out of control. Lisa didn't match it. "He's not coming back," she said calmly. And just like that, it was over. The next day made it real. Lisa in one car, Scott and I in another, police escort behind us as we pulled up. My things were already packed, thrown into trash bags by the door. My father stood there, watching, waiting. I didn't say a word, didn't look at him, didn't give him anything. I grabbed my things and walked out. No fear, no hesitation, just distance. And as I stepped away from that house, something settled in me for the first time in years. It was over. For the first time, I was free. The years they took. Chapter 17. Becoming someone new. Living with Lisa didn't feel real at first. There was no tension in the air, no constant fear of saying the wrong thing. No one watched me. No one waited for me to mess up. The quiet felt different here. Not heavy, not suffocating, just peaceful. I didn't know what to do with that at first. Scott was there through all of it, like he had been from the start. We spent time together in ways that felt simple, but meant everything to me. Going to video game stores, wandering around for hours, picking up cases, talking about games we liked or wanted to try. It wasn't about buying anything. It was about being there, together, without pressure. "You've played this one?" he asked one day, holding up a game. "Yeah, it's actually really good," I said. "All right, I'm trusting you," he laughed. "If it sucks, I'm blaming you." "That's fair." Moments like that felt normal. And for the first time, normal felt new. Somewhere in all of it, I started noticing something else. I had choices. Small ones at first. What I wanted to wear. What I wanted to listen to. Things I had never really been allowed to decide before. So I started experimenting. One day I decided to dye my hair black. Standing in the mirror afterward, I barely recognized myself. Not in a bad way, just different. Like I was finally seeing a version of me that hadn't been controlled or shaped by someone else. "What do you think?" I asked Scott. He looked at me for a second, then smiled. It suits you." "Yeah? Yeah, it's you." That stuck with me. I started picking out my own clothes too. Not what someone approved of, not what was handed to me, what I liked, what felt right. It wasn't about fashion, it was about identity, about figuring out who I was without someone else deciding it for me. For the first time, I felt like I was becoming someone instead of just surviving. Then one day, everything collided. We were at Walmart with Lisa, just grocery shopping. Nothing special. Just another normal day. I remember thinking how strange it was that something so ordinary could feel so good. Scott and I pushed the cart down one aisle, joking about something I don't even remember now. I turned the corner into the next aisle and froze. They were right there. My dad, Denise, standing just a few feet away. It felt like the air got pulled out of the space instantly, my body locked up, my chest tightening before my mind could even catch up. He looked at me, not surprised, not emotional, just cold. His eyes scanned me from head to toe, taking in everything, the hair, the clothes, the version of me that existed now. And then he smirked. "What the hell did you do to yourself?" he said. I didn't answer. "You look ridiculous," he added, shaking his head slightly, "like you don't even know who you are." Each word hit, but I stayed still. I wasn't going to give him anything. "Still in school?" he asked sharply. "Yes," I said quietly. "Good," he replied, "because if I find out you've missed even one day, I'll call the police myself." There it was. Control. Even now he was reaching for it. Denise stood there beside him, arms crossed, watching like it was all just confirmation of what she already believed. I said nothing. I didn't argue. I didn't defend myself, because I didn't have to anymore. After a few seconds, he scoffed and turned away. "Unbelievable," he muttered, walking past me like I was nothing. They left the aisle just as quickly as they appeared, and just like that it was quiet again, but not the same quiet. Scott stepped closer immediately. "What the hell was that?" he said, his voice tight with anger. I didn't answer right away. "He doesn't get to talk to you like that," he added, shaking his head. "Not anymore." I let out a slow breath, the tension still sitting in my chest. "I know," I said. And for the first time, I meant it. Because even though they were still the same, I wasn't. I stood there for a moment longer, then grabbed the card again. "Come on," I said. Scott looked at me, still frustrated, but nodded. And as we walked away, I realized something that felt just as important as the day I left. They could still show up. They could still speak. But they didn't control me anymore, not even a little. The years they took. Chapter 18. The things that felt like forever life with Scott became something I looked forward to in ways I didn't even realize were possible. Each day I would listen for it, the low rumble of his car coming down the gravel driveway. My heart would start pounding the second I heard it, like my body knew before my mind did. I'd look out the window trying not to seem too eager, but I always was. And every single time, without fail, he'd step out of the car, look right at me and smile. Then the hug. Always the hug. "How are you?" he'd ask, like it mattered, like I mattered. And I felt it. I felt like I was on his mind, like I wasn't just an afterthought in someone's life. One night we were on the couch watching the Blair Witch Project. The room was dark, the TV casting shadows across the walls, but I wasn't really paying attention. Those kinds of movies weren't my thing. I was curled into him, holding his phone, flipping it open and closing it again, my mind somewhere else entirely. There was something I needed to say, something that had been building for a while, but I didn't know how. My hands felt shaky as I opened the phone again and went to the messages. I stared at the screen for a second, my heart racing, then typed it out before I could stop myself. "I love you. I think." I nudged him and handed him the phone, keeping my eyes on the TV even though I wasn't seeing it. I couldn't look at him. I just waited. I could hear him typing, the quiet clicking of the button somehow louder than anything else in the room. Then he handed it back. I looked down. "I love you too." It hit me all at once. For the first time since leaving everything behind, someone had said those words to me, really said them, not out of habit, not forced, just because they felt it. Those words didn't exist where I came from. And in that moment, it felt like something inside me came back to life. The days after that felt almost unreal. Everything was easy, natural, like we had found something neither of us had to question. I remember being at Pineville Mall, walking through Hot Topic when I saw it, a silver necklace and a Zippo lighter, both with a light pink crystal fairy on them. I stopped in my tracks. I'd always loved things like that. Something about them felt magical, soft, different from everything else. "Those are sick," Scott said casually, but I just stared. I wanted them so badly, but I knew I couldn't afford it, so I let it go. Or at least I tried to. Later that night, I was in the kitchen for a few minutes. When I came back into my room, I froze. There they were, sitting on my bed like they had always been there, the necklace, the lighter. For a second, I didn't even understand what I was looking at. Then it hit me. He saw. He noticed. My chest tightened, my throat closing up before I could even say anything. I turned and hugged him hard, the kind of hug that said everything I couldn't put into words. I started crying without meaning to. No one had ever done something like that for me before, something so small but so thoughtful, so seen. He didn't say much, just held me, like he understood without needing it explained. There were so many moments like that. Small, but they stayed with me. One time we were driving and hit a tree. The sound, the jolt, it all happened so fast, but he didn't care about the car. He turned to me immediately, his voice panicked. "If anything had happened to you, I swear to God." That's all he said, but it was enough. Or nights where his mom made grilled cheese and we sat there eating like it was the best thing in the world. Long drives with no destination, laughing over nothing. Him bumping into me with a shopping cart just to make me laugh. It was simple, but it was everything. I was happy, really happy. And I was in love in a way I had never experienced before. Not forced, not complicated, just real. But even that didn't last. Lisa sat me down one day. "We're moving to Florida," she said. My stomach dropped. "I think it's best we get you on a bus back to Illinois." Illinois. A place I hadn't seen in over 4 years. A place I had missed more than I ever admitted out loud. The night came too fast. It was dark, raining. The kind of rain that makes everything feel heavier. The Greyhound sat there, engine running, waiting. I stood there for a moment, scanning, hoping. But Scott wasn't there. That hurt more than I expected. Later, I would hear from his friend that it messed him up, that he couldn't handle seeing me leave. And I understood that. I did. But standing there in that moment, it still shattered something in me. I got on the bus anyway, found my seat. And as it pulled away, I looked out the window, watching everything disappear behind me. Back toward Illinois, my home, the one I had been mocked for loving, the one I hadn't seen in so long. And just like that, I was leaving another piece of my life behind. The years they took. Chapter 19. Home again. The bus ride felt endless, hours blending together with the steady hum of the engine as the world passed by outside in a blur I barely registered. My mind was somewhere ahead of me, waiting, wondering. And then it happened. The I-74 bridge, the sign reading, "Welcome to Illinois." My chest tightened as I stared at it. It didn't feel real, not yet. When the bus finally pulled into the station, my hands felt unsteady as I stood and stepped down, scanning the crowd until I saw them. My grandparents, standing there like they had always been there, like no time had passed at all. I didn't think, I just moved, and the second I reached them, everything broke loose. I cried harder than I ever had. Years of fear, distance, and longing crashing out all at once as they held me without questions, without hesitation, just love. The drive away from the station felt quiet, almost surreal, like my mind couldn't fully catch up to what was happening. "Do you smoke?" my grandfather asked, offering me a cigarette, and I nodded, taking it, still caught somewhere between disbelief and reality. We stopped at Maid-Rite, something so simple yet so familiar it felt overwhelming. Sitting in that booth, eating food I hadn't had in years, talking and laughing, I found myself pausing, just looking at them, really looking, wondering if they were real, if this was real, if I was truly back after all that time. When we finished and drove home, something shifted inside me as we pulled up. I stepped out and walked in slowly, taking it in. Nothing had changed. Not the smell, not the feeling. It was still full of warmth, still full of something I hadn't felt in years. Safety. Pepper, I called, and before I could take another step, he was on me, jumping, whining, overwhelmed with excitement. I laughed, holding on to him, surprised he remembered me after so long. I looked up and saw the Christmas tree glowing, decorations filling the room, something so normal, yet something I had been without for years. It felt like stepping back in time. I walked through the house slowly after that. The computer room, the basement where I used to dance as a kid, each space bringing pieces of me back with it. I went to my old room, set my things down, and stood there for a moment, breathing it all in. This wasn't a dream. I was home. Days passed, and I began settling into something unfamiliar in the best way, peace. Then one day the phone rang. I walked over without thinking, glancing at the caller ID, and froze. Dad. Everything in me went still for a moment before I picked up. Hello? There was no pause on the other end, no hesitation. Who the fuck told you that you could go to Illinois? His voice came through sharp, aggressive, full of the same control I had left behind. You were not to leave the state. We have sole custody of you until you're 18. You either come back or we're calling the police. The words hit, but not the way they used to. Something was different now. I stood there holding the phone, listening, but I didn't feel small. I didn't feel afraid. I looked around the room, the house, the life I was standing in, and all I felt was distance. Fuck you, Mark, I said calmly, my voice steady, final. And before he could say another word, I hung up. The silence that followed wasn't heavy. It wasn't suffocating. For the first time in my life, it felt like freedom. Chapter 20. The ones I never stopped missing. Being back in Illinois with my grandparents felt like stepping into something I had held on to for years just to survive everything else. The house, the warmth, the familiarity. It all felt real in a way I had almost forgotten. But there was still something missing. Something I had been waiting for just as long. The day finally came when I was going to see my mom and my sister again. The drive there felt longer than it probably was, my thoughts racing ahead of me, my hands restless as I stared out the window. I didn't know what to expect. I didn't know how it would feel. Part of me was excited, but another part of me was nervous, like I'd been gone too long, like something might be different. When we pulled up, my heart started pounding so hard I could feel it in my chest. I stepped out of the car slowly, almost afraid to move too fast, like the moment might disappear if I did. Then the door opened, and there she was. My mom. For a second, we just looked at each other, both of us trying to process that this was real, that we were actually standing there after everything. Then she ran to me, and I didn't hesitate. I wrapped my arms around her, holding on as tight as I could, and everything I had been holding in for years came rushing out. I cried into her shoulder like I was a kid again, like no time had passed, like I'd finally made it back to where I belonged. My baby, she kept saying, her voice breaking, holding me just as tightly. It wasn't complicated, it wasn't forced. It was just love, the kind I had missed so deeply that I didn't even realize how much until I felt it again. Then I saw my sister standing there, already tearing up, and I pulled her into a hug too. I missed you, I said, my voice shaking. I missed you too, she said. And I could hear the truth in it. Being there with them, standing in that moment, felt like something inside me finally settled. Like a part of me that had been stretched too far for too long had finally come back into place. We spent hours talking, catching up on everything and nothing at the same time, laughing, filling in the gaps that never should have existed. It felt natural, easy. Like this was how life was always supposed to be, But even in the middle of it, there was something else sitting quietly in my chest. Scott. I caught myself thinking about him in the pauses, in the quiet moments between conversations, wondering what he was doing, wondering if he was okay, wondering if he was thinking about me too. Everything here felt right, like I had finally found my way back home, but it didn't erase what I had just left behind. It didn't erase him. That kind of love doesn't just disappear because distance is put between it. It stays. It lingers in small moments, in memories that don't fade as easily as you wish they would. Later that night, when things quieted down and everyone settled in, I sat there, taking it all in. The sound of my mom's voice in the other room, my sister moving around, the feeling of being surrounded by people who loved me without conditions. This was what I had wanted for so long. This was what I had needed. And I had it. But I also understood something in that moment that I hadn't before. You can be home and still miss someone at the same time. You can feel whole and still feel a space where someone used to be. And as I sat there, finally reunited with the people I had longed for, I held on to both truths. The comfort of being back where I belonged and the quiet ache of someone who had helped me survive long enough to get there. Chapter 21. Things Fade. Here, go buy something, my grandmother said, handing me $35. It seemed like such a small thing, but to me it meant everything. I walked to the video game store alone, no one watching me, no one questioning where I was going or how long I'd be. Halfway there, I stopped and looked up at the sky, just standing there for a moment, letting it sink in. Freedom, real freedom. I smiled to myself and kept walking. Inside the store, I took my time, browsing through the shelves like I had all the time in the world, eventually picking out Clock Tower. When I got home, Dave had already hooked up my PlayStation 2. Wires stretched across the floor, everything ready. We stayed up all night playing, laughing, talking about nothing important, but enjoying every second of it. For the first time in a long time, I felt seen, not judged, not watched, just accepted. Christmas came soon after, and the house filled with warmth, presents under the tree, laughter in every room, the kind of feeling that made everything feel alive again. I remember sitting there, taking it all in, realizing I was home, truly home. But even in the middle of that, there was something it had cost me. Scott. At night, when everything got quiet, that's when it would hit the hardest. I would sit on my bed holding a photo of me and Scott, staring at it like I could somehow step back into that moment. My fingers would trace over the edges of the picture, my chest tightening as every memory came rushing back, the car rides, the laughter, the way he looked at me like I mattered. Tears would fill my eyes before I could stop them, but I would still smile because what we had was real. He was real. Thank you for saving me. Thank you for loving me. I whispered softly to the photo, my voice breaking in the quiet of the room. I would hold it there for a moment longer, like I didn't want to let go, before placing it gently under my pillow. It hurt, but it wasn't the same kind of pain I had known before. It wasn't fear, it wasn't control. It was something else, missing someone who had changed my life. As time went on, Scott and I began to communicate less. It wasn't sudden, just small gaps that slowly grew wider until the conversations became fewer and farther between. Part of me understood it was natural. Life was moving forward whether I was ready for it or not. The last message he sent stayed with me more than anything else. I've dated a few people, but none compared to you. I read those words over and over, holding on to them like they meant something permanent, like they couldn't fade the way everything else seemed to. Life began to feel normal again. I would walk around town, revisiting places from my childhood, seeing them not just as memories, but as something I was living in again. Freedom became something I had to relearn, something that felt strange at first, but slowly started to feel natural. The small things meant everything: choosing where to go, what to do, who to be, things most people never think twice about. As for Marcus, I never saw him again. Some people disappear from your life without warning, leaving behind only pieces of memory. I later found out that Eric was serving 8 years in prison. Hearing that didn't bring closure the way I thought it might. It didn't undo anything. It didn't give answers. It just was. Even now, I still have dreams, confronting my father, confronting Denise, asking them why. Why me? Why any of it? But those conversations only exist in my head. In reality, I never got that closure. It's been over 20 years and my father still refuses to speak to me. Leave the past in the past, he once said. Easy words to say when you weren't the one who had to live through it. I found my voice eventually, something they tried to take from me. Up to my father and Denise. For 20 years, you said nothing. No phone calls to check on me. No attempts to reconnect, no conversations, no accountability, just silence. And when there were words, they were always the same. The past is the past. But that's easy to say when you're not the one who has to live with it. I didn't get to leave it behind. I carried it through my teenage years, into adulthood, into quiet moments where it comes back without warning. You moved on. I had to survive it. That's the difference. Not once did you try to sit down with me and ask what it did to me. Not once did you say, we were wrong. Not once did you take responsibility for the way I was treated in that house. Instead, it was easier for you to pretend it didn't happen or that it didn't matter. But it did. It shaped me in ways you will never fully understand. The fear, the control, the silence. That doesn't just disappear because time passes. You chose not to face it. I didn't have that choice. I had to carry every unanswered question, every memory, every moment where I needed someone to step in and no one did. And yes, I'm angry. Not just because of what happened, but because of what didn't happen after. No apology, no accountability, no effort to make it right. You don't get to decide that the past stays in the past when I'm the one who has to live with it every day. You don't get to rewrite it into something smaller just because it's easier for you. I deserved better then, and I deserved more than silence after. I don't need anything from you anymore. Not an apology, not an explanation. That time has passed. But I will say this, what you did mattered. What you didn't do mattered just as much. And I carried both for far too long. This is me putting it down. Matthew. Dear Scott, I've gone back and forth in my head about writing this for years. Not because I didn't know what to say, but because I wasn't sure how to put something like this into words without it feeling too small. What you were to me, what we had, it was never small. You came into my life at a time when I was barely holding on. I didn't know who I was anymore. I had spent so long being quiet, being controlled, being told what I could and couldn't be, that I stopped recognizing myself. And then there was you. You didn't ask me to explain anything. You just saw me. Not the version shaped by fear, not the version that had learned to stay small, just me. And you treated me like I mattered, like I was worth your time, your attention, your care. That wasn't something I was used to. And I don't think you'll ever fully understand what that did for me. You didn't just care about me. You made me feel alive again. I still remember the sound of your car pulling up, how my heart would start racing before I even saw you. That feeling, knowing I was about to step into a moment where I could just breathe. The way you hugged me every time, like it wasn't something you were thinking about, just something you felt. How are you? You'd ask. Like the answer actually mattered, and with you, it did. It was never about big things. It was the small moments that stayed with me. sitting in your car with the music playing, you letting me control the radio even when it meant hearing the same songs over and over again, walking through stores, laughing over nothing, late nights where we didn't have to say much, just being there was enough. You gave me something I didn't have before, peace. And I'll never forget the night I told you I loved you. I couldn't even say it out loud. I typed it, handed you your phone, and looked away because I was scared of what it meant. I love you, I think. And you didn't hesitate. You just wrote back, I love you too. So simple. But to me, it was everything. Those words didn't exist where I came from, but you gave them to me without question. You gave me something real. The fairy necklace. I still think about that. The way you noticed something I didn't even say out loud. The way you paid attention. No one had ever done that for me before. I remember hugging you and crying, not because of the gift itself, but because of what it meant. I was seen, I was thought about, I mattered. And more than anything, you saved me. I don't say that lightly. You came into my life when I didn't know if things would ever feel different. And you showed me they could. You showed me what it felt like to be safe, to be cared for, to be wanted without conditions. I carried that with me long after I left. And that's the part that's hard, because what we had was real, but it didn't last. I understand now why you didn't come that night when I left. I heard how hard it was for you. And honestly, I don't blame you. Saying goodbye like that, I don't think either of us would have walked away from it okay. But I won't lie. It broke my heart. Not because I thought you didn't care, but because I knew you did. And sometimes that makes it harder. It's been over 20 years now, and I can say this honestly. No one has ever come into my life the way you did. No one has ever made me feel the way you did during that time. And I don't say that with sadness. I say it with truth. What we had was rare, it was genuine, and it came at a time when I needed it more than anything. You were never just a chapter in my life. You were the moment everything changed. I don't know where life took you. I don't know who you became, but I hope you're okay. I hope you found something good. I hope you found peace, because you gave that to me when I needed it most. So, this isn't goodbye. Not really. It's just something I needed to say. Thank you for seeing me. Thank you for loving me. And thank you for saving me. Matthew.